On the planet Zarilan, the sky glowed with shades of orange and purple. The air was thick with energy, and the ground vibrated softly underfoot. In the heart of the royal palace, the fierce alien Queen Kira paced back and forth. Her long, silver hair shimmered in the light of the twin suns, and her golden eyes burned with worry. Her 3 daughters Luma, Sara, and Nera were nowhere to be found. The palace was unusually quiet. Guards, usually alert and ready, whispered among themselves. They had searched every hall, chamber, and garden. Nothing. Not a trace of the young princesses. The disappearance was impossible. The daughters had never wandered far without supervision, and the palace's protective shields were active. Kira stopped and looked out of the large window toward the forests surrounding the palace. She could see the faint glow of alien plants, their energy pulsing softly. Normally, the forest was safe. Now, it seemed dangerous. Her heart pounded with fear. The daughters were small, curious, and kind-hearted. They did not understand the dangers of the world outside the palace. "Commander Rin," Kira said, her voice steady but sharp. "Search the outer perimeter again. I want every inch of the palace and gardens scanned." Commander Rin, a tall alien with dark green skin and sharp features, nodded. "Yes, Your Majesty. We will begin immediately." Kira turned to another group of guards. "And send a message to the nearby human exploration team. We may need their help." Her voice had a hint of hesitation. Humans were unpredictable. Many Zarilan citizens did not trust them, but Kira had no choice. Meanwhile, in the nearby valley, Max, a human explorer, was carefully studying the local wildlife. His portable scanner beeped as it detected small movements among the glowing trees. He adjusted the scanner and crouched, observing. His mission was simple: learn about the planet's ecosystem. He had not expected to be involved in any royal matters. Suddenly, a bright light flashed across the sky. Max looked up, shielding his eyes. A signal beacon from the palace appeared, sending a request for immediate assistance. Max frowned. He was trained to respond to emergencies, especially when humans were called to help alien allies. Within minutes, Max was on his hover bike, speeding toward the palace. The terrain was challenging, but the hover bike moved smoothly over the uneven ground. Trees and rocks blurred past him. The thought of missing something important made him focus even more. Back at the palace, Kira watched the sky anxiously. She hoped the human would arrive quickly. She could feel a strange energy in the air, a subtle disturbance that she could not explain. Her daughters were not just missing, they seemed drawn somewhere, as if by an invisible force. When Max arrived, Kira met him at the entrance of the palace gardens. Her presence was commanding, and her aura made Max step back slightly. He was used to humans being in charge, but this was different. He respected Kira, but he also knew he needed to act quickly. "Max," Kira said, her tone a mix of urgency and caution. "My daughters are missing. We have searched everywhere. I need your help to find them." Max nodded, glancing around at the glowing trees and the unusual landscape. "Tell me what you know. Any sign, any clue." Kira took a deep breath. They vanished without a sound. No doors were opened, no shields broken. Yet they are gone. Something has drawn them away. I do not know what. Max examined the ground and the nearby plants. "Do you see this?" he asked, pointing to faint markings on the soil. "These tracks are unusual. They are not from any known animal, and they are too small for your daughters to leave in this area. Maybe they were carried, or maybe something else was involved." Kira's eyes narrowed. "Something else, what do you mean?" Max shook his head. "I don't know yet. But whatever it is, it seems intelligent. It left no clear traces, only these faint disturbances." Kira's heart sank. Her daughters were vulnerable. She felt a strange mix of anger and fear. How could anyone take them? And why? Commander Rin stepped forward. We will expand the search, Your Majesty. Every patrol, every drone, every sensor will scan the surrounding lands. Nothing will be left unchecked. Kira nodded. Good. And Max, I need you to focus on the areas humans can access. Your perspective may reveal something we cannot see. Max moved carefully, scanning the glowing forest floor. The air shimmered as if alive. Strange lights danced around the trees, and the faint hum of energy made him focus even more. He sensed that whatever took the daughters was intelligent and cautious. Hours passed. The sun began to set, painting the sky with deep red and purple hues. Max found small hints: bent leaves, faint traces of energy, and a subtle warmth that seemed to move. He knew he was getting closer, but the mystery remained. Kira watched from the palace balcony, her thoughts with her daughters. She remembered their laughter, their curiosity, and their gentle hearts. She vowed that nothing would stop her from finding them, even if it meant trusting a human to help. Night fell on Zarelin. The forests glowed softly under the twin moons, casting long shadows. Max continued to follow the faint signs, unaware that the first step toward discovering the daughter's location was about to appear. A small, flickering light moved in the distance, almost like a heartbeat, waiting for someone to notice it. Kira felt it too. A subtle pulse in the air, gentle but persistent. She knew her daughters were out there, and she would not rest until they were safe. And somewhere in the forest, tiny forms moved with careful steps, small but full of life. The adventure to find them had only just begun. The morning sun rose slowly over Zarelin, casting a warm orange light across the palace gardens. Queen Kira stood at the balcony, her eyes scanning the horizon. The forests surrounding the palace seemed calm, but she knew better. Somewhere out there, her daughters Luma, Sara, and Nero were lost, and every passing hour made her worry. Max was already in the nearby forest, moving carefully among the glowing plants. The strange energy of Zarelin made his skin tingle. He carried a scanner and a small backpack filled with tools for exploration. His mind was focused entirely on finding the daughters. Each step had to be careful. One wrong move could erase a clue forever. He paused to examine a series of tiny markings in the soft soil. The prints were unlike anything he had ever seen. They were too small to be alien guards, too precise to be animal tracks. They seemed to almost float above the ground, like the weight of the creatures who made them had no gravity. Max knelt and studied the prints closely. He took out a small holographic device and projected the tracks. The patterns glowed faintly in blue light. Interesting, he muttered. They are moving in a straight line, but they avoid certain plants. They must be careful not to disturb energy sources. Whoever or whatever this is, it understands the forest. A sudden rustle in the leaves made Max freeze. A small figure darted across his path and vanished behind a tree. He adjusted his scanner and saw a faint energy trail. There you are, he whispered. He followed carefully, moving slowly to avoid startling the creature. Meanwhile, Kira met with Commander Rin in the palace council room. Screens displayed maps, sensors, and energy readings from the surrounding area. Guards reported unusual readings, faint pulses of life energy moving in patterns that were hard to track. This is not just a disappearance, Kira said, her voice tense. It is something deliberate. My daughters are being drawn somewhere, and I need to know why. Commander Rin nodded. We are scanning all possible locations, Your Majesty. But the traces are subtle. Whoever did this is careful and intelligent. Kira's eyes narrowed. Then we must be smarter. Send patrols in pairs. No one moves alone. And Max, if the human finds something, we need to communicate instantly. There is no time for mistakes. Back in the forest, Max followed the energy trail deeper into the glowing woods. Strange plants surrounded him, their leaves pulsating softly with light. The air smelled sweet, almost like a mixture of honey and fresh rain. He realized the daughters might have been drawn toward this place because it was safe or familiar. A low hum echoed around him. Max froze. It was not loud, but it vibrated in his chest. His scanner showed an unusual reading, an energy pulse similar to life energy but different from anything on Zarelin. He adjusted his device. The pulses were rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. Max crouched and moved closer to the source. Small glowing particles floated in the air, forming faint shapes. He whispered to himself, "This is where they were taken. I can feel it." Suddenly, a shadow moved behind a large rock. Max held his breath. A tiny figure peeked out. It had silver hair that glowed faintly and large, golden eyes. Max's heart raced. Could this be one of the daughters? He took a cautious step forward. "Hello," he said softly. "I'm not here to hurt you. I want to help." The figure froze, then darted behind the rock. Max followed slowly. He noticed more signs: bent leaves, faint imprints in the soil, and a soft warmth that seemed to move along the ground. "They are here," he muttered. "All three of them, I think." Meanwhile, Kira's patrols reported more strange signs. Tiny disturbances in the ground, faint glows in the forest, and a low hum that no sensor could explain. Kira realized that her daughters were not just hiding, they were choosing a path. Something invisible was guiding them. Back in the forest, Max discovered a small clearing. The air was brighter here, filled with soft golden light. The plants seemed to bend toward each other, forming a natural dome. He crouched and saw three small figures curled up together in the center. His heart skipped a beat. "They must be the daughters," he whispered. The small figures had soft silver hair and golden eyes like Kira. They looked fragile and small, yet there was an energy about them that was strong and alive. Max approached slowly, keeping his voice calm. "I'm here to help. You are safe." One of the daughters, the smallest, peeked out. Her eyes widened at Max, but she did not run. The other two stirred, sensing a protective presence. They had been hiding from danger, but Max's calmness made them feel safe. Kira, watching from her palace sensors, felt a faint pulse of energy. It was as if her daughters were responding to someone else's presence. She frowned. Could it be a human? She had never seen this happen before. Max knelt and extended his hand slowly. "It's okay," he said. "I'm not going to hurt you. You can trust me." The daughters hesitated, then one of them stepped forward. Her tiny hand reached toward Max. He smiled softly and allowed her to touch his hand. The warmth of the gesture made the daughters relax. Slowly, the other two joined. Max realized that the daughters were drawn to something familiar and safe. Their small bodies pressed against him instinctively. It was not fear, it was trust, a natural response to someone who could protect them. At that moment, Kira felt a strange calm. The daughters were not alone. Somehow, they had found safety. She realized that this human, Max, might be more important than she had expected. Max gently supported the daughters, making sure they did not fall or get hurt. He spoke softly to them, explaining that he would take them back to the palace. The daughters seemed to understand in their own way, their golden eyes looking up at him with quiet trust. The forest was still, and the glow of the plants made the scene almost magical. Max took a deep breath, realizing that he was part of something far bigger than just a search mission. He was forming a bond with beings from another world, beings who depended on him. As the sun rose higher, Max began moving back toward the palace. The daughters clung gently to him, small but full of life. He knew that this was only the beginning. The mystery of why they vanished, and why they chose him, had yet to be solved. Kira watched the forest from her palace balcony. She could sense the daughter's energy moving with Mac's relief mixed with curiosity. Trust between humans and her people was rare, but perhaps it was necessary. The search was over for now, but the adventure was only beginning. Max carried the daughters carefully, their small forms warm against his chest. He understood that the bond he was forming would be important, not just for today, but for the future of humans and Zaralan aliens alike. And so, in the golden morning light of Zaralan, the first steps of understanding and friendship began. The palace of Queen Kira buzzed with activity as the news of Max finding the daughters spread. Guards and scientists moved quickly, scanning maps and reviewing energy readings from the forest. Kira, however, remained at the balcony, her golden eyes focused on the horizon. She could feel the faint pulse of her daughter's energy moving closer, but there was still unease in her heart. Why had they wandered so far? What had drawn them into the forest? Max carefully carried the daughters through the palace gardens. The girls clung gently to him, their tiny hands gripping his arms as if their small lives depended on his strength. Max kept his voice soft, speaking to them in soothing tones. The youngest, Nira, blinked up at him with wide, trusting eyes. "We're almost there," Max whispered. "We just need to get back to your mother. You'll be safe soon." The daughters seemed to understand, their small bodies relaxing slightly as they felt the warmth and security from Max. The forest around them was alive with soft glows and strange sounds, but none of it frightened the girls now. They had found someone they could trust. At the palace, Commander Rin organized the patrols. "We need to understand why the daughters left the palace," he said. "It is not natural for them to wander so far. There may be hidden forces or unknown creatures involved." Kira nodded. "I agree. And Max's involvement may help us see things we cannot. Humans think differently. Perhaps he can notice what we have missed." Max finally reached the palace gates, where Kira and her council awaited. The daughters were placed gently on the ground, still clinging to Max's hands. Kira stepped forward, her expression a mixture of relief and curiosity. "My daughters," Kira said, her voice trembling slightly with emotion. "Are you unharmed?" The daughters nodded, their eyes wide but calm. Luma, the eldest, stepped forward and reached for her mother. Kira knelt and embraced her carefully, feeling the soft weight of her child against her chest. Sarah and Nira followed, each receiving a gentle hug. The royal family was together again, yet questions remained. Max watched quietly, noticing the way Kira's energy seemed to shift when she held her daughters. He realized that the bond between the queen and her children was strong, and yet different from what he had experienced with humans. Still, the daughters had trusted him, and that trust had been enough to guide them home. Kira straightened and looked at Max. "You have done well," she said. "It is unusual for a human to be so calm and careful with alien children. Your actions have saved them." Max nodded, though he felt a sense of humility. "I only followed what I could see. They trusted me, and I responded." Kira studied him for a moment. "Trust is rare between our species. This may be the beginning of something important. But first, we must understand why they disappeared." Commander Rin brought forward sensor readings from the forest. The data showed strange energy trails, pulsing faintly as if alive. Max examined the holographic map. "These readings are unusual," he said. "The trails move in ways that suggest intelligence, but they do not match any known creature. They avoid obstacles carefully, and they lead directly to the daughter's location. Someone or something guided them." Kira frowned. "Guided them? By whom? Our people are certain no enemy could bypass our shields." Max shook his head. "It may not be an enemy. It could be a natural force, something unique to this planet. Or perhaps the daughters were drawn to it instinctively." Kira's expression softened. "Instinct may be stronger than we imagine. Perhaps they felt a connection we cannot explain." The queen called her daughters to sit together. She watched them carefully, noting their reactions and the way they moved. Luma, the eldest, seemed curious but cautious. Sara, the middle child, displayed bravery and observation. Nira, the youngest, radiated innocence and trust. Kira realized that each daughter had their own personality and way of responding to the world. Max observed quietly. He noticed that the daughters' energy pulses responded to his own presence. They had chosen him, not out of fear or coercion, but because of the sense of safety he provided. This was extraordinary. It was not just a rescue, it was a bond forming across species. Kira spoke to her council. We must extend our search beyond the immediate forest. If this force exists, it may be present elsewhere. We cannot ignore it. Commander Rin nodded. Agreed, Your Majesty. Additional patrols will be sent to the outer valleys and the glowing plains. Sensors will monitor energy patterns continuously. No detail is too small. Max offered a suggestion. The daughters were drawn to warmth and safety. Perhaps we can use that understanding to predict their movement or the movement of any other beings influenced by the same force. Kira considered this. You may be right. We often rely on technology and overlook instincts. Your human perspective may help us see things differently. Later, Kira joined Max and the daughters in a quiet chamber within the palace. The room had soft lighting and simple furnishings. The daughters played quietly on the floor, but their eyes kept glancing at Max. He sat nearby, letting them approach as they felt safe. They trust you, Kira said softly, watching their interactions. That is unusual. Even our guards would not receive such instinctive acceptance from them. Max smiled. They are sensitive to calmness and warmth. I only gave them that, nothing more. Kira nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps we have underestimated the strength of such simple qualities. Trust and care may be more powerful than fear and authority. Outside the palace, the forests remained alive with subtle energy pulses. Kira knew that the daughter's disappearance had been caused by forces she did not yet understand. But she also realized that this event had opened a new perspective. Perhaps humans and Xaralan aliens could learn from each other, cooperate, and understand instincts and emotions in ways that technology alone could not reveal. As the day passed, Max continued to observe the daughters, noting how they responded to sounds, movements, and gestures. Each small interaction built a stronger bond. Kira watched quietly, impressed by the humans' patience and care. She realized that the safety of her daughters depended not just on strength and shields, but on understanding and empathy. The sun began to set over Xaralan, casting long shadows across the palace gardens. The daughters rested, safe in their chambers. Max prepared to leave for the night, knowing that tomorrow would bring more questions and more exploration. Kira approached him. Your help has been invaluable. Tomorrow, we must learn more about the force that guided my daughters. Perhaps it is a key to understanding our world in ways we never imagined. Max nodded. I will help in any way I can. We will find answers together. The Queen watched him leave, her mind full of thoughts about trust, safety, and the unusual bond between her daughters and the human. She knew that the search for understanding was just beginning, and that what they had discovered today might change the future for both humans and Xaralan aliens. And in the quiet of the palace, the daughters slept peacefully, their small forms resting easily, knowing that for the first time since their disappearance, they were truly safe. The morning on Xaralan was calm but filled with tension. Queen Kira stood on the balcony, her golden eyes scanning the distant forests. Though her daughters were safe inside the palace, she could still sense the lingering energy of the mysterious force that had drawn them away. Something in the forest pulsed with life, and she knew they had been guided by more than simple curiosity. Max prepared for another day of exploration. He had spent the night analyzing the sensor data collected during the previous search. The patterns of energy were unusual, almost alive. They seemed to respond to the daughter's presence, yet also moved independently at times. Max felt that understanding these patterns was key to protecting them and possibly others who might be affected. He entered the palace gardens where the daughters played. Luma, the eldest, greeted him with a small smile. Sarah and Nero followed, their curiosity sparkling in their golden eyes. Max crouched to their level and spoke gently. Today, we are going to learn more about the forest. We need to understand what drew you there so we can keep you safe. The daughters nodded, sensing that Max's words carried care and protection. Together, they moved toward the edge of the palace grounds where the forest began. Strange glowing plants arched overhead, creating a natural canopy that filtered sunlight into shimmering patterns on the ground. As they walked, Max noticed subtle signs of movement. Small disturbances in the glowing soil, tiny glowing particles drifting through the air, and faint traces of life energy that seemed to shift and ripple with every step. "Look at this," he said softly, pointing to the faint imprints. "Something has been moving carefully here. It is intelligent, but cautious. We need to follow the signs carefully." The daughters watched intently. Nira reached out and touched one of the glowing plants. It responded with a soft pulse of light, almost like a heartbeat. Max's eyes widened. "They are connected to the energy of the forest," he whispered. "Everything here responds to life around it." Queen Kira monitored the scene from her palace sensors. She could see the faint energy trails but could not yet identify the source. "It is not just the daughters that are drawn to this," she said. "Something else is present, something alive in ways we do not understand." Max moved cautiously, observing how the daughters interacted with the environment. Luma approached a small clearing where the glowing plants seemed to form a natural circle. The air vibrated with subtle energy. Luma stepped inside the circle, and the plants bent slightly toward her. Max realized that the daughters themselves influenced the energy of the forest. "Interesting," Max muttered. "Their life energy resonates with the forest. That might be why they were drawn away. The forest itself may have called to them." Suddenly, a soft hum filled the air. Max froze, listening carefully. The sound was low and rhythmic, almost like a pulse. The daughters instinctively moved closer to him, their small hands gripping his arms. Max realized the hum was not dangerous, but it carried a strange presence. The energy readings on his device spiked slightly. "Something is nearby," he whispered. He followed the subtle vibrations, keeping the daughters close. The forest seemed to respond to their movements. The plants leaned gently toward them, creating a faint path of light. Queen Kira observed closely. She could sense the daughters' connection to the forest, but she was also aware of the unknown presence. "Commander Rin," she said. "Prepare a small team. We need to follow Max and the daughters from a safe distance. Do not interfere unless necessary. We must understand what guides them." Commander Rin nodded and sent a team to follow discreetly, using sensors and cloaking technology to remain unseen. Kira knew that direct interference could disturb the energy patterns and possibly endanger the daughters. As Max and the daughters moved deeper into the forest, they discovered signs of life unlike anything they had seen. Small creatures with translucent wings flitted between the glowing plants. Strange flowers opened and closed in response to their movements. Max noted the patterns carefully, realizing that the forest itself was alive in a way that could sense and react to intelligent beings. The daughters seemed fascinated. Sarah reached out to touch a floating creature. It hovered briefly, then glided away without fear. Max smiled. "They know we mean no harm," he said softly. "The forest recognizes us, at least in part." A sudden movement caught Max's attention. A faint ripple in the air, like a distortion of light, appeared near a cluster of glowing plants. He moved closer, keeping the daughters behind him. The ripple grew slightly, then vanished. Max's mind raced. The force that guided the daughters may not be fully physical, he said. It could be a form of energy that interacts with life directly. Luma stepped forward cautiously. Her golden eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the shimmering light of the forest. Max noticed that the energy readings responded to her presence. The forest pulsed in time with her heartbeat. It was as if the daughters themselves were amplifying the force that had drawn them there. Queen Kira watched the readings with a mix of awe and concern. "They are part of the energy," she said softly. "It is as if the forest recognizes their life force and responds to it. This is far beyond anything we have observed before." Max continued to follow the subtle signs, noticing patterns that led to a small grove. In the center, a cluster of plants formed a protective circle. Tiny lights floated above the ground, moving gently in the air. The daughters moved closer to the circle, and the lights responded by glowing brighter. "They are safe here," Max whispered. "Whatever this is, it is not harmful. It seems to be guiding them, protecting them." The daughters looked up at him, their small hands touching his arm. Max realized that the bond between them was growing stronger. Their instinctive trust allowed him to guide them without fear. Queen Kira felt a mixture of relief and curiosity. She had expected danger, but instead she saw a delicate balance of life and energy. The daughters' instinct had led them to a place of safety, and Max's presence had reinforced that trust. Max took a moment to observe the surroundings. He noticed that the energy patterns suggested more than just safety, they indicated intelligence. The forest itself, or perhaps some hidden creatures within it, had chosen to interact with the daughters. Understanding this intelligence would be crucial. As the sun began to rise higher, Max led the daughters out of the grove carefully. They moved slowly, respecting the energy that had protected them. The subtle hum of life continued around them, and the glowing plants bent gently as they passed. Queen Kira monitored the progress with careful attention. She realized that the forest, the daughters, and Max were all connected in ways that could not be fully explained. Trust, care, and instinct were as important as technology and shields. By the end of the day, Max and the daughters returned to the palace. The girls were calm, their energy stable. Max felt a sense of satisfaction. He had learned much about the forest, the daughters, and the mysterious force that guided them. Kira approached him as he prepared to leave. "You have done well," she said. "Today, we have seen that life on Zaralin is more connected than we imagined. Your understanding of instinct and care has kept my daughters safe. We must continue to learn from this." Max nodded. "We will. There is still much to discover, and I believe the daughters are key to understanding it all." The palace settled into quiet as night approached. The daughters slept peacefully, safe within their chambers. Outside, the forest pulsed with energy, alive and watchful. The bond between human and alien, between the daughters and the mysterious force, had grown stronger. And so, the signs of life in the forest had revealed a new truth, that instinct, trust, and care could guide beings safely through even the most mysterious and dangerous places. The morning on Zaralin was quiet, with twin suns rising over the forests, casting long golden shadows across the glowing landscape. Queen Kira stood on her balcony, her gaze fixed on the forest beyond the palace walls. Though her daughters were safe, her mind was restless. Something in the forest had guided them, and she needed to understand what it was. Max prepared for another journey into the forest. The daughters, still small but now more confident, followed him willingly. Luma walked with careful steps, observing everything around her. Sara's eyes darted to every movement, curious and alert. Nira, the youngest, held Max's hand tightly, trusting his presence completely. "Stay close," Max said softly. "Today, we are going to find the source of the energy that drew you here. We need to know who or what helped you." The daughters nodded, and together they moved through the glowing plants. The forest seemed alive, bending gently toward them, guiding their path. Max followed the faint energy trails that his scanner detected, noting every small pulse and movement. After walking for some time, Max noticed subtle signs of motion ahead. Tiny glowing footprints appeared in the soft soil, almost invisible to the naked eye. They led into a small clearing surrounded by thick, luminous plants. The air here vibrated with a gentle hum that seemed to resonate with the daughter's energy. "Something is here," Max whispered, crouching to keep the daughters close. "Be careful, but stay calm. Whatever this is, it seems peaceful." Luma stepped forward cautiously, her small hand reaching out toward the center of the clearing. As she did, a soft glow appeared above the ground, forming delicate shapes that danced in the air. The shapes swirled like ribbons of light, responding to the daughter's presence. Sarah and Nero watched in awe, their eyes reflecting the shimmering light. The forest, or whatever lived within it, seemed to recognize them. Max observed closely, noting how the energy responded to each daughter differently. "It is like the forest knows them," Max whispered. "It reacts to their life force. They are part of this energy somehow." Queen Kira monitored the readings from her palace. She saw the unusual patterns on her sensors and realized that her daughters were interacting with something extraordinary. "It is alive," she said softly. "Not in the way we know life, but it senses, responds, and protects. My daughters are safe because it recognizes them." Max knelt beside the daughters, keeping his voice calm. "See? It is not dangerous. It wants to protect you, not harm you." Nero leaned against him, her small hands resting gently on his arms. Luma and Sarah mirrored the gesture, their trust in him clear and unwavering. As the group moved deeper into the clearing, Max noticed a faint ripple in the air. The glowing shapes above the ground coalesced into something more defined, small, delicate creatures with translucent wings. Their bodies glowed softly, and they hovered around the daughters without fear. "These must be the guardians," Max whispered. "They are what guided you here." The daughters watched the creatures, their eyes wide with wonder. Luma reached out, and one of the glowing beings floated toward her, responding to her touch with a gentle pulse of light. Sarah followed, and the creatures seemed to recognize each daughter uniquely, adapting their glow and movement to match the girl's energy. Queen Kira felt a surge of relief. Her daughters had not been taken by any enemy. Instead, they had been guided by a natural protective force. Yet, she also realized that this discovery was extraordinary. These beings, or this energy, had never been recorded in Zarilan history. Max moved carefully, observing the interactions. "The energy here is intelligent," he said softly. "It can sense intentions and respond. That is why the daughters felt safe. The creatures or the force itself recognized their trust and innocence." Sarah giggled softly as a small creature hovered above her head, spinning gently in response to her movement. Nira clapped her hands, delighted by the glowing display. Luma observed with curiosity, her eyes scanning the forest for patterns in the energy. Max smiled. "They are learning from each other," he said. "The daughters feel safe, and the energy responds. This is a form of communication without words. It is understanding through presence, trust, and care." Queen Kira reflected on Max's words. Perhaps humans had something to teach her people about instincts, empathy, and subtle communication. The daughters had trusted a human, and that trust had allowed them to interact safely with the forest's energy. A sudden hum filled the clearing, stronger than before. Max noticed that the pulse of energy was responding to the daughters' combined presence. Their energy seemed to amplify the force around them, creating a protective field. "This is remarkable," Max whispered. "They are not just guided by the energy, they influence it. Their presence strengthens it." Luma stepped toward Max, her golden eyes glowing faintly. "It feels happy," she said softly. Sarah nodded, and even little Nira smiled. The daughters had a natural understanding of the energy. Max realized the importance of what he had discovered. The daughters were not passive participants, they were active contributors to the forest's protective force. This knowledge could help Zarilan's people learn to coexist with their environment in ways they had never imagined. Queen Kira's concern shifted to curiosity. Perhaps this discovery could strengthen the bond between her people and humans, who had shown patience, empathy, and understanding. Max's role in guiding the daughters safely had demonstrated the power of calmness and trust. As the group prepared to leave the clearing, the glowing creatures followed them to the edge of the forest. Max carried Nira carefully, while Luma and Sara walked alongside him, their small hands brushing the plants as they moved. The guardians of the forest hovered nearby, their light dimming but still visible as a reminder of protection. Returning to the palace, Max gently placed the daughters inside their chambers. Queen Kira approached, her expression a mixture of relief and fascination. "They are unharmed," she said. "And yet, they have discovered something extraordinary. This energy, these guardians. I must understand it fully." Max nodded. "It is not dangerous, but it is intelligent. It responds to care, trust, and presence. Your daughters connected with it naturally." Kira's eyes softened. "I see now that strength is not only in power or shields. Care, trust, and understanding can be just as strong. Your actions have shown this, Max." The daughters played quietly in their chamber, their energy calm and content. Max watched them with satisfaction, knowing that the discovery of the forest's guardians and the daughters' unique connection had revealed something remarkable. Outside, the forest pulsed gently under the rising sun. The guardians moved among the glowing plants, observing the world with awareness. They had chosen to guide and protect, responding to life with intelligence and care. Queen Kira stood at the balcony once more, her mind filled with questions and new understanding. She realized that the daughters' vanishing had been a blessing in disguise. They had revealed the existence of an unseen intelligence, a force that connected life and energy in ways Zarilan had never known. Max prepared to leave for the evening, reflecting on the day's discoveries. The bond between him and the daughters had grown stronger, and the knowledge he had gained about the energy and its guardians would guide future exploration. As night fell on Zarilan, the palace was quiet. The daughters slept peacefully, protected not only by the walls of the palace but also by the intelligence of the forest and the trust they had placed in Max. The discovery had changed everything. It had shown that life on Zarilan was more interconnected than anyone had imagined. And it had revealed that trust, care, and understanding could create bridges between species and forces that no technology could replace. The palace of Queen Kira was quiet in the early morning, yet the energy of the daughters lingered in every corner. Luma, Sara, and Nira were awake, playing gently with the glowing objects brought from the forest. Their small golden eyes reflected curiosity and wonder, but also a calm confidence that had not been there before. Max entered the room quietly. The daughters greeted him with soft smiles, moving closer without hesitation. He knelt down to be at their level, sensing their trust and calmness. "Good morning," he said softly. "Today, we will learn more about the connection you have with the forest and its guardians." The daughters nodded, their tiny hands brushing against his arms. Max noticed how naturally they responded to his presence. It was not fear or obedience, it was trust. The bond they had formed during the search and discovery of the guardians had become strong. Queen Kira observed from the balcony. She could sense the daughters' calm energy but also noticed the presence of Max influencing it. She called her advisors. "We must understand this bond," she said. "It is unusual for a human to be accepted so naturally by my daughters. There is something in this connection that may be vital for our people." Max led the daughters to the palace gardens. The glowing plants of Zarilan reflected the light of the twin suns, and the forest beyond pulsed faintly with energy. He instructed the daughters to observe how the energy responded when they moved or touched certain plants. Luma reached out to a glowing vine, and it responded with a gentle pulse of light. Sarah experimented by stepping carefully on patches of soft, luminous soil, noticing subtle ripples spreading outward. Nira, holding Max's hand, felt the warmth of the energy as it interacted with her small body. Max watched carefully. "You see," he said, "the energy responds to your presence. Your life force interacts with it. You are not just being guided, you are a part of it. That is why the guardians reacted to you." The daughters looked at each other, understanding in their own way. Max continued. "And when you trust someone, your energy remains calm. That calm allows the guardians to work with you, not against you. That is why you felt safe with me." Queen Kira spoke from the balcony, her voice calm but full of authority. "This bond you describe is remarkable. Humans and Xaralan aliens rarely share such instinctive trust. Max, you have shown care, patience, and understanding. These qualities are more powerful than shields or weapons." Max nodded. "It is simple, Your Majesty. The daughters trusted me, and I protected that trust. The forest responded because it senses life and intention. Care, attention, and calmness create harmony with this energy." Kira considered this. "Perhaps we have underestimated the strength of instinct and emotion. Technology and power alone are not enough. Understanding and empathy are equally important." As the day passed, Max guided the daughters to experiment further. They moved through the palace gardens and nearby forest edges, observing how the glowing plants and small energy pulses reacted. Luma stepped carefully on a patch of luminous moss, and the light brightened under her touch. Sarah brushed her hand along the trunk of a large glowing tree, and tiny lights moved along its surface, following her fingers. Nira, holding Max's hand, smiled as soft pulses of warmth moved through the ground. Max explained, "The energy responds to your life force and your intentions. When you are calm, the energy flows freely. When you are fearful or hurried, it resists." The daughters practiced, learning how their presence could influence the energy without fear. Max observed each one carefully, noting the differences. Luma was careful and precise, Sarah curious and observant, and Nira gentle and trusting. Each interacted with the energy in her own way, yet all responded to Max's guidance. Queen Kira watched quietly. She realized that her daughters were not only learning about the forest, they were learning about trust and cooperation. Max's role was critical. His calmness and care had allowed the daughters to develop this understanding naturally. Later, Max and the daughters returned to a small clearing near the palace. The guardians of the forest had followed at a distance, their light flickering softly in acknowledgement. Max encouraged the daughters to reach out to the guardians, observing how the energy shifted and responded. Luma extended her hand, and one of the glowing creatures floated toward her, spinning gently in the air. Sarah followed, and the guardians adapted to her movements. Nira, still holding Max's hand, felt a pulse of warmth as the creatures circled above her. Max smiled. "Do you see? The guardians recognize your presence. They respond to your calmness and trust. This is the bond we are talking about." Queen Kira stepped forward, approaching the clearing. She observed the interaction closely. "I see now that the bond is not only between you and the daughters, Max. It extends to the guardians and the energy of the forest. Your care and understanding amplify their natural instincts." Max nodded. "Yes. The daughters trust me, and the guardians trust them. When everyone is calm and caring, the energy flows naturally. That is why the daughters were safe when they disappeared. They instinctively followed the safest path." Kira smiled softly. She realized that this lesson could change how her people approached their world. Strength was not only in force or authority, understanding, care, and empathy could create connections stronger than any shield. The daughters experimented further, learning to move through the clearing and interact with the guardians. Each movement was met with a soft pulse of energy, and Max guided them patiently. They laughed softly, enjoying the interaction without fear. Max reflected on the importance of trust. It was not just instinct, it was a conscious connection that allowed life to flourish safely. The daughter's natural trust and his own careful guidance had created a harmony that extended beyond species. As evening approached, Max led the daughters back to the palace. They were calm, their small bodies relaxed. Queen Kira greeted them warmly, observing their energy closely. She could sense that the bond between Max and the daughters had grown stronger, and that the Guardian's energy continued to respond positively. "You have done well today," Kira said to Max. "You have shown that trust, care, and understanding are as important as strength and shields. This bond you share with my daughters may be the key to future cooperation between humans and Xaralan aliens." Max smiled humbly. "It is simple, Your Majesty. Care, patience, and calmness can create harmony. The daughters taught me as much as I guided them." Kira nodded thoughtfully. "Indeed. And we will continue to learn together. Your presence has shown that the future may hold understanding between our worlds, built on trust and empathy rather than fear and power." The daughters were placed safely in their chambers, their energy calm and content. Max watched for a moment, feeling the quiet satisfaction of a day well spent. The bond between him and the daughters had grown, and their understanding of the forest and its guardians had deepened. Outside, the palace gardens glowed softly under the evening light. The guardians hovered near the edge of the forest, their presence calm and watchful. The daughters' connection with them had grown stronger, and Max understood that this harmony was something rare and powerful. Queen Kira stood on the balcony once more, reflecting on the day. She realized that the daughters' disappearance, though frightening, had revealed something extraordinary: the power of trust, care, and empathy. With guidance and patience, even beings from different worlds could form bonds that strengthened life itself. And so, on Xaralan, a new understanding had begun. One that combined instinct, intelligence, and empathy. One that showed that trust and care could create bridges between species, energy, and life itself. The morning sun rose over Xaralan, casting soft golden light across the palace and the surrounding forests. Queen Kira stood on the balcony, her eyes scanning the horizon. The previous days had been full of discovery, understanding, and wonder. Her daughters were safe, and yet she knew that something extraordinary had been revealed, something that could change her people forever. Max arrived at the palace gardens, carrying a small pack of supplies. The daughters ran toward him, laughing softly. Luma, Sara, and Nira moved with confidence, their golden eyes shining brightly. They had grown in understanding and trust, and Max felt the bond between them stronger than ever. "Good morning," Max said softly, crouching to greet them. "Today, we are going to learn even more about the forest and the guardians. Are you ready?" The daughters nodded eagerly. They had learned how to interact with the energy of Xaralan and its guardians, and their curiosity had grown. Max smiled, realizing that they were ready for the next step in their discovery. Queen Kira approached, joining them in the gardens. "Max," she said, "I want to accompany you today. I wish to see for myself the bond that has kept my daughters safe and to understand the guardians and the energy that guides them." Max nodded. "Of course, Your Majesty. We will take it slowly and carefully. The energy responds to calmness, and your presence will be important." The group moved toward the edge of the forest. The glowing plants arched overhead, casting gentle light along the path. The guardians hovered nearby, their translucent wings shimmering softly. As they approached the clearing where the daughters had first met the guardians, the energy pulses became stronger and more defined. Luma stepped forward first, her small hand reaching toward a cluster of glowing plants. The plants responded immediately, bending gently and emitting soft pulses of light. Sara followed, observing carefully, while Nira held Max's hand, feeling the warmth and protection he provided. Queen Kira watched in fascination. She could sense the energy's response, and she realized that the daughter's presence was vital. Their life force resonated with the forest, creating harmony that allowed the guardians to move freely and safely. Max knelt beside the daughters. "You see," he said softly, "the energy responds to your calmness and trust. It recognizes your intentions. You are not just safe here, you are a part of this force. That is why the guardians guided you." The daughters smiled, understanding in their own way. They had learned that trust, care, and calmness could create connections stronger than any shield or weapon. The guardians circled above them, glowing softly, acknowledging the harmony they had created. Queen Kira stepped closer. "It is extraordinary," she said. "I have always believed in strength and protection, but I now see that understanding, empathy, and trust are just as powerful. This is a lesson we must carry forward." Max nodded. "The bond we have formed is rare. It shows that life on Zerlin and human life can work together. When we act with care and patience, we can create harmony across worlds." The daughters began to explore the clearing more freely, interacting with the glowing plants and guardians. Each movement created a pulse of energy, and Max observed how they adapted naturally to the response of the guardians. Luma was precise and curious, Sura imaginative and careful, and Nira gentle and trusting. Together, they influenced the energy, creating a balanced harmony. Queen Kira joined them in the clearing, observing closely. She could sense the daughter's energy and Max's calm influence. "This is more than protection," she said softly. "It is understanding. It is connection. And it is something we can learn from to strengthen our people and our world." Max guided the daughters through a series of movements, showing how their presence could interact with the energy without fear or disturbance. They stepped lightly, touched the plants gently, and observed the guardians with wonder. Each action reinforced trust and harmony. As the sun reached its highest point, the clearing glowed with a soft golden light. The guardians hovered above, their wings reflecting the sunlight. The daughters moved through the space with confidence, their energy calm and steady. Max smiled, proud of their growth and the bond they had formed. Queen Kira observed quietly, understanding the significance of what had happened. "Max," she said, "you have not only kept my daughters safe, but you have taught us all a lesson. Strength alone is not enough. Trust, care, and understanding create power that shields cannot provide. You have shown us a new path." Max shook his head humbly. "It is the daughters who taught me. Their trust, their calmness, and their curiosity allowed the guardians to respond. We all learned together." The daughters gathered near Max, their small hands holding his arms and touching his shoulders. The guardians hovered around them, glowing softly. The forest responded to their presence, bending and pulsing with gentle energy. It was a scene of harmony, connection, and trust, a living demonstration of what could be achieved through care and understanding. Queen Kira stepped forward, placing her hands gently on Luma's shoulders. "We will study this bond carefully," she said. "It will guide our people, our guardians, and our forest's trust and care are the true strength of Zerlin." Max watched, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. The daughters had returned safely, but they had also revealed something far greater: the importance of connection, empathy, and understanding across worlds. As the day ended, the group returned to the palace. The daughters were calm, their energy balanced and content. Max stood with Queen Kira on the balcony, watching the sun set over the glowing forests. "Today, we learned that life is connected in ways we cannot always see," Kira said. "Guardians, energy, and trust are part of a greater whole. Humans and Zerlin aliens can learn from each other. And together, we can protect what is precious." Max nodded. "Yes. Care, patience, and understanding create bonds stronger than any shield. We have seen it with your daughters and the guardians. We can carry this lesson forward for both our worlds." Queen Kira looked at the forest, sensing the guardian's calm presence and the daughter's energy. "This is a new beginning," she said. "One that will shape the future of Zerlin and perhaps even the relationship between our worlds." We have seen that trust and empathy can create bridges stronger than fear or force. Max smiled softly. And it begins with small steps. A hand offered, care shown, and trust given. That is enough to change everything. The daughters played quietly in their chambers, safe and happy. The guardians hovered near the palace gardens, a constant reminder of the harmony they had discovered. Max realized that their journey had not only kept the daughters safe but had opened the door to a future where humans and Xaralan aliens could understand and protect each other. Queen Kira stood at the balcony until night fell, her mind filled with hope and wonder. The daughters had returned safely, and yet they had revealed a truth greater than she had imagined. Trust, care, and understanding could connect life in ways technology and shields never could. And so, on Xaralan, a new chapter began. One where humans and aliens worked together, where trust bridged worlds, and where the daughters' instinct and courage had revealed a path to a brighter, harmonious future. The twin sun set over the glowing forests, and the palace rested quietly, filled with life, energy, and a promise of a new beginning.